Okay, so we're back from Christmas, guys. I hope you guys all had a great holiday with your family. Obviously, you've been gone for a couple days, just got back in town. Some breaking news had come out in the last couple days about this waiver that's now been granted by the NCAA. I know there was a lot of bad information out there the night it went through. A lot of people saying things like this goes for all junior college players now have an extra year of eligibility. Um, Things like that all were basically none of it was correct. A lot of the information that was coming out, I know some of it's been clarified over the last couple of days, but wanted to give you guys the most solid information I can about this new waiver that's been released by the NCAA, what I think that means, and also where I see this going eventually. So let's get right into it, guys. But before that, remember, something like 90% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed. If you like daily college baseball content, recruiting information, development type videos, we do that daily. Please hit that subscribe button, really helps us out. And also hit a like on the video if you like, it helps us with the algorithm. So let's get straight into it, guys, and into this first article from Yahoo Sports that's talking about the waiver that's been granted by the NCAA. So some junior college athletes will see their careers extended, at least for now. The NCAA Division I board of directors, composed of university presidents, agreed to a waiver for junior college players that grants them an additional year of eligibility if they are in a similar situation as Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia. So first off, guys, if you just read that part, it's like, oh, junior college players all have an additional year of eligibility. Not true. This is only pertaining to players whose eligibility would end in this 25 season that's coming up. So if you're a player whose eligibility would end after this spring semester that we're heading into, like Diego Pavia, then you are granted an extra year of eligibility. And it's also not just JuCo players, it's all non-NCAA. So your NAIA players theoretically will have this same year of eligibility granted to them. Again, the caveat is your eligibility has to be ending this spring semester, after the spring semester in this calendar year. So if that's not the case, if you're a junior right now, if you're a sophomore year right now, and you were at an NAIA or a JuCo, you do not get this extra year of eligibility yet. Again, yet is the key word here because we'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but it's looking like that's eventually going to be something that everybody will get. Pavia is suing the NCAA over its eligibility standards, arguing that his junior college playing season should not count as part of his 4 seasons of NCAA eligibility. The NCAA D1 board of decision came 5 days after Tennessee's federal court granted Pavia an injunction that prohibits the association from counting his junior college seasons, granting him an additional year of eligibility. Now, remember, this injunction was granted to him because his argument was basically he was not able to maximize his ability with his name, image, likeness to make money in college football. From what this article says, he's planning on or will be paid upwards of around $1 million for this next season. So the court viewed it as, okay, well, he's not being, it's an antitrust issue and he's not being given basically the same eligibility years as other players because he went to junior college. Again, I mean, he knew that, but whatever. This is the time we're in college sports. The court ruling only applied to Pavia. However, the NCAA, in an effort to keep fairness among its competitive schools, granted additional eligibility to all similarly positioned athletes, according to a memo sent to schools. Athletes like Pavia, who were expected to use their final year of eligibility this academic year, are now eligible next season. Again, it's not super clear, but if your eligibility does not end in this academic year, this waiver does not apply to you. Pavia played 2 seasons of junior college and 3 seasons of Division I football, one of those being the COVID redshirt season. Because of the court ruling, he will receive a 6th season of NCAA eligibility. The NCAA I Division Board of Directors granted a waiver to permit student athletes who attended and competed at non-NCAA school for 1 or more years to remain eligible and compete in the 2025 and 2026 academic years. The NCAA memo reads, if those student athletes would have otherwise used their final season of competition during the 24-25 academic year and meet all other eligibility requirements like progress towards degree, 5-year period of eligibility, the NCAA will allow you to get that extra year. But, hey, hold up. The NCAA plans to file an appeal to the court's ruling in the Pavia lawsuit, it announced Monday. So at the same time they're granting this waiver to players in a similar situation as Pavia, they're also appealing the court's decision in the Pavia lawsuit. So who knows where this is going to go? In perhaps more important news, NCAA could be barreling toward more significant change to its eligibility rules, something the association suggested in its memo to schools Monday. The NCAA's memo reminded schools that the Division I Council is exploring a comprehensive review of eligibility rules to create a framework that will be sustainable and can withstand scrutiny, the memo said. There is movement from college leaders to adjust the eligibility rule in a way that grants athletes 5 playing seasons in a 5-year time span. Now, yes, you just heard that and read it. College leaders are moving towards remember, it was always a 4 years of playing in 5 years. You had 5 years to play 4 seasons. Well, now they're saying, you have 5 years to do it, so we might as well just give you an extra year playing anyway. You guys can play for 5 seasons. That's what this article is saying. College leaders are trying to adjust to, is moving to a 5-year athletic eligibility calendar for college athletes in NCAA. Current NCAA rules permit athletes 4 playing seasons over a 5-year stretch, often referred to as the association's 5-year eligibility clock. For now, only certain sports grant athletes the ability to play in multiple contests and still retain a year of eligibility. For instance, football is one of those sports. The NCAA's board's ruling Monday opens a door for hundreds, if not thousands, of former junior college athletes to have their careers extended if they so choose. As the NCAA suggested in its statement on the injunction last week, the consequences of such will be felt by high school players whose projected roster spots are no longer becoming free. So, yeah, hey, sorry, high school players, but there's going to be a lot of extra JuCo players sticking around, and that's a roster spot that you're not going to be able to compete for. The decision comes amid an unstable and somewhat chaotic time. Yahoo puts this in a massive understatement. Unstable and somewhat chaotic time. Yeah, right. It's the craziest time in college athletics, especially in baseball, than in history, right? With all these changes. Schools are scrambling to adhere to new rules imposed as part of the NCAA's landmark settlement of the House antitrust case, including stricter limitations on the size of rosters. More than 4,000 roster spots are expected to be cut among the power leagues alone. So across all sports in the Power 4 conference, more than 4,000 roster spots. Remember, guys, this roster size limits are being challenged in court. We're going to have to wait and see how that ends up going. But baseball is the one sport being the most heavily impacted by these roster limit changes. You're going from 40 to 34. So you're losing 6 roster spots. You're losing 15% of your roster size just from the cuts alone. Or just from the limitations, the size limits alone. So, okay, so high school players, 15% roster size cut. And then, the junior college players that are in Division I right now, whose eligibility ends this year, now they have 1 more year. And you're competing with all the portal guys and NIL and all this stuff. So high school players become even harder, and it's getting harder and harder and harder as the months go on, especially in the last 6 months. Altering the enforcement rules is overwhelmingly supported by NCAA member schools makes a shifting environment even more unsettled, the association said in a statement last week. The court's ruling last week is the 3rd major court decision in the last year to bar the association from enforcing a rule. So the courts keep basically dunking on the NCAA. The NCAA makes a ruling and an official rule, and the courts just kind of go, yeah, no, you can't enforce that. So this is the 3rd major court decision in the last year to basically overrule the NCAA. A West Virginia court made it possible for athletes who are transferring a second time or more to play immediately. So remember, when the portal first came out, it was a one-time transfer to another, Division I school or whatever, and you were immediately eligible as long as it wasn't in that winter period. So if you went in the transfer portal after the spring semester or spring summer, as long as it wasn't a mid-year transfer, you were eligible for the next season of Division I in baseball, right? So now the court in West Virginia months ago overruled that and said, no, you can do it as many times as you want. So now there's no rule on it. Ruling in Tennessee federal court made mostly moot the NCAA's interim NIL policy, permitting boosters and booster-led collectives to negotiate with athletes before they enroll. So now, your boosters and their funds that they're putting together can basically just negotiate with players and pay them as much as they want, can negotiate with an agent or whatever. And so that's out the rule. Remember, NIL guys, the original intention was that like a restaurant or a business could pay a player to make an appearance at their business or do post on social media and could pay them for that. That way they could use their name, image, likeness to make money. Well, it's just turned into, you don't need to do anything for it. A booster can just give you $150,000 and you're playing for the school. And there's nothing you need to do in order to earn that. Whereas a business was like, hey, I'll pay a $5,000 to make a couple social media posts, but you got to make the social media post. Well, the boosters and their collectives, they're not requiring these guys most of the time to do anything for that money. It's just, hey, if you come here, we'll give you this money. You just got to play. So there's just a history of the court overruling the NCAA in what their legislation is and what their rules are in this new era. So the NCAA basically just keeps losing power over kind of as being the authority of what the rules are. The courts are overruling them. At the heart of Pavia's argument is the fact that he and other athletes are now eligible to receive compensation from boosters and soon from schools through the House Settlement's revenue sharing provision. He stands to earn at least $1 million next year in college, he says in the filing. It's money he'd otherwise miss out on if he'd run out of eligibility. Yeah, I mean, I'd be trying to get back in if I could. Starting in July, schools are permitted to directly share revenue with athletes. It paves the way for millions of dollars, as much as $20.5 million annually per school, to be shared with athletes in a giant step as major college sports moves from an amateurism model to a professionalized concept. So I've told you guys this, college sports, college baseball is no longer an amateur sport, at least at the highest levels. It still is an amateur sport at the lower level D1s, stuff like that. But a lot of the best players from those levels are just transferring up to get paid. So college baseball essentially is a professional baseball minor league type system now. It's a good reason for athletes, especially players unlikely to be drafted, to remain in college as long as they can. So think about baseball, guys. The MLB draft is way smaller than it's ever been. It's 20 rounds. It was 40 when I was playing. It was upwards of 65 not too long ago. And so now there's just way more players that are really good players in college that are not getting drafted. And so those guys are, again, sticking around. And even some players who would have got drafted late in the 20 rounds and not given that much money are getting paid more from big programs to stay. So again, college baseball is just getting way more competitive because a lot of these players are sticking around college baseball for an extra year or two than they normally would. So what does this all mean, guys? We're going to look at, some of the reactions here and some of the clarifications just so you guys can see as I pull this up. So from Ross Dillinger on X, just so you guys are clear on kind of what these rulings mean, NCAA board votes to appeal the Diego Pavia court ruling, but also grants a waiver for junior college players in a similar position as Pavia, paving the way for the extension of the careers of hundreds of former junior college players. For clarity purposes, as it is written in that NCAA memo, the waiver is limited to only those whose eligibility expires this year. So this coming spring, right? At the end of this calendar year, if your eligibility expires, you are granted an extra year if you played NAIA and JuCo. For now, other junior college or NAIA athletes would continue on their normal eligibility course. Emphasis on for now. So the key here, guys, is that the key is this. Is this waiver the end game of what's going to happen? Probably not. NCAA is going to appeal the case for a Diego Pavia. Again, as if history repeats itself, it just seems like as soon as the NCAA loses one of these court cases, and I think they're getting ahead of this, what they're doing, this is what the NCAA is doing, right? You're not going to hear this anywhere else. They're granting this waiver so that more players don't take this to court. They're hoping that granting this waiver is going to make it to where, and there's going to be enough bad information out there that players don't take them to court in large numbers, like what probably would have happened if they didn't just grant this waiver quickly. And so they're hoping, again, because if a lot of people bring this to court, then they're just not going to want to pay the legal fees, and they're eventually going to roll over and just allow this to happen. So the NCAA is fighting this, I think, in a smart way. They're giving some guys an extra year that have the same issue as Diego Pavia, but they're not applying it to all JuCo players or all NAIA players, or even the guys that are in Division I right now. If your eligibility does not end this academic or this calendar academic year, it doesn't apply to you. But I think what eventually will happen is that guys are going to bring this to court. And eventually, like they did with the NIL stuff, like they did with the one-time transfer thing, they're going to roll over and let this happen. which will ultimately mean junior college players, whether it's granted at 1 year of eligibility or 2 years of eligibility, we'll have to wait and see. But I think most of us in the college baseball world fully believe that eventually this will become an official ruling for everybody moving forward. Now, when is that going to happen? Who knows? It depends on how this appeal in the Diego Pavia case goes. Again, they're fighting this, and I think some people are looking at this in the wrong way. They're looking at it as, oh, the NCAA is granting them a waiver. What is they're rolling over? No, what they're doing is they're trying to get ahead of this. And hopefully by putting this information out, there's going to be so many people, and you guys saw this, there's a lot of people posting out that, oh, this applies to all junior college players, and every junior college player now gets an extra year of eligibility. No, it's not. I would have probably put a video out a couple of days ago if I wasn't, traveling all around in-laws, my parents' house for Christmas. But I want to make sure you guys have the most accurate information out there. And right now, the information is this. This waiver is a strategy from the NCAA to hopefully make it to where a lot of people don't bring this to court, and they're going to appeal this. And if they win the appeal, then they're good, right? Because then there's no precedent for all these other people. They're hoping that this waiver kind of calms the waters, makes it to where people aren't challenging this in court for their JuCo eligibility years to be erased or their JuCo years to not count towards NCAA. But we'll have to wait and see. Remember, guys, hope this helps. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and questions. Good to be back and making these videos for everybody. Let me know what you guys think, right? Let me know if you think I'm dead wrong about this or something like that. But we're going to have more videos coming out again the rest of the weekend and live streams. If you missed it earlier today, we'll be starting again Monday throughout the work week. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, most of you guys watching this video are not subscribed to the channel. It's like 90%. So if you like the content we put out, the college baseball news updates, when we get into the season, we're going to be covering stuff that happens in games for you guys to understand kind of what players can do better, recruiting help, development type videos. If you like that content, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. And if you enjoyed this video and thought it brought you some value, hit that like button, boost us in the algorithm, and we'll be back with another one again shortly. Again, thanks, guys.